Hello, my name is Paymon Aramju, and every single month we come out with videos explaining people's legal rights and responsibilities on different topics. And while we oftentimes talk about vehicle accidents, which is something we often handle at our office, we have occasionally gotten calls regarding bicycle and pedestrian accidents. So we thought it was important to spend a little bit of time to talk about what rights and responsibilities exist in the domain of bicycle and pedestrian accidents as well. Now, while it's often the case that you're not going to see insurance coverage on the bicyclist or the pedestrian, nonetheless, the accidents often occur with somebody who's operating a motor vehicle or in what may be a dangerous intersection, which means that despite the fact that you may not have your own insurance coverage, there may be recovery that could be had from the individual that caused the accident or from the environment in which the accident occurred on. And what's interesting is that many cities are becoming more bike friendly. There's definitely a push towards communities being more bike friendly by having bicycle lanes, by having pedestrian crosswalks, and making sure that our communities are more safe for people to move around in different means than just the traditional cars that we often drive. But the reality is that when accidents take place that involve bicycles or pedestrians, there's oftentimes an increased injury that may occur. And that's just the reality that people that are on their bike and people that are walking don't have the protections that oftentimes you have when you're operating a motor vehicle. And the unfortunate thing is because of that, the injuries can be quite severe when you've dealt with an accident involving being on a bicycle or walking. And the truth is that bicyclists and pedestrians have protection whenever they're injured in an accident from other people's negligence. Just simply because you're driving a bike or you're walking doesn't mean that you're not due the safety of others acting as reasonable people should act when driving their cars. One of the things that can cause bicycle accidents and car accidents is just drivers' failure to pay attention. So many accidents nowadays happen from reasons that we're all aware of, just inattention to your surroundings, to what's going on around you while driving your car. And it can be a common reason why bicycle or pedestrian accidents occur. But the truth is that Missouri has what's called comparative fault, which means that even if you bear some responsibility in the accident, you can still collect from the person who caused the injury. But what Missouri law says is if you were at fault in some regards for causing the accident, your recovery may be lessened. And there are some common ways that you can recover in bicycle or pedestrian accidents. There's also common ways that your actions can reduce the recovery that you have. So it's important that if you're going to take the steps to walk around where cars are, through crosswalks and intersections, or bike through those intersections and crosswalks, that you do what you can to protect yourself. Make sure that you're obeying traffic signals. Make sure that you're wearing bright colored clothing. Make sure that you're not taking any steps that may be considered negligent or fall below the standard of care that somebody should follow when they're operating their bicycle or if they're walking. It can be really important that you do what you're supposed to do so that if somebody's negligent in causing the accident, causing your injuries, you can still recover from their wrongdoing, and that your actions don't reduce the recovery that you could otherwise have. Now, bicycles in many jurisdictions have their own dedicated bicycle lanes, and they're afforded the same rights as anybody is that's using the road as they should. And so just because a bicyclist on the road, especially if they're in the designated bike lane, doesn't mean that they can't recover because an automobile causes the accident. It's important to know that many jurisdictions may have rules as far as what safe passing means, how much distance a car and a bike should have between one another. And again, pedestrians, they have protection as well. Like I said earlier, there's importance to follow the traffic and safety laws to make sure that you're following all the traffic signals. You're not jaywalking or walking into an intersection without paying attention to what's around you. There are a lot of responsibilities to make sure that you're able to collect if you're injured in a bicycle or pedestrian accident. By making sure that you're doing everything you can to prevent the accident from taking place and not putting your own safety in jeopardy. If you're injured in a bicycle and pedestrian accident, it's important that you immediately take steps. If you're so injured that immediate medical attention is needed, then do that. Get the medical attention. Follow the EMS and fire department's suggestions as far as medical care. If you need transported to a hospital, go to the hospital. Make sure that you get the care that you need, because it can always be a concern later if you choose not to get the care, to later complain about the injuries when you could have prevented them from getting as bad as they did. But if you can, make sure to get photos of the incident. Make sure to get witness statements. Make sure to capture all the information that you can to make sure that later, if you need to hire counsel or litigate the case, that the evidence is there in order to prove the case and be successful in your case. I say that, though, with the recognition that your health and safety is of utmost importance. So don't take any steps that are going to put your safety and wellness in jeopardy if you're trying to preserve or gather evidence in your case. It's important that officers are called if there's an injury accident, and thankfully that can oftentimes be a way to gather evidence such as witnesses and photos in an accident scene. One of the most difficult things about practicing in the area of law that we do is determining the compensation that somebody should receive. When you're involved in a bicycle or pedestrian accident, it's important that you're compensated for your injuries, for the pain and suffering, for the trauma that may have caused you. And one of the ways that we determine that is by the injuries that you experienced. But we also need to know, what was the conduct of the defendant that caused the injuries? Were they texting and driving? Were they drunk driving? What was it that caused the intersection or the accident to be dangerous and result in the injuries that occurred? For us, investigating the case is really important early on to make sure that we're able to gather any and all evidence that we may need. There may be crash data from the vehicles we want to gather. There may be skid marks that may need to be measured. There may be bicycles that need to be taken from the scene in order to replicate and help a potential jury understand how significant the injuries were. What I ask is that if you're involved in a bicycle or pedestrian accident, that you call legal counsel right away. I say this because every day that goes past the date of the accident, evidence is disappearing. There may be footage from the cameras in the intersection. Like I said, there may be crash data on the cars that were involved in the accident. There may be witnesses that may move. There may be debris at the accident scene. Every day that information is not gathered is potentially days that the evidence is going away. So if you need help, if you've been through a hard time, what we tell clients is that we educate, empower, and advocate for those that are seriously injured. Call us. We look forward to talking with you.